Something I talk about in almost every video I do on Canelo Alvarez is his signature strategy of creating pressure on his opponents by stepping forward with his lead foot into punching range while keeping the rest of his body back. The key to being able to do this without widening your stance too far is by stepping forward with your rear foot first, as you see Canelo doing here. As you can see, he's stepping his rear foot first, then following with his lead foot, as opposed to the conventional method of stepping with your lead foot first. And by stepping his rear foot forward first, this allows him to step forward with his lead foot only while keeping an effective stance to punch or move. You see, Canelo sets most of his traps and his offense once he plants his lead foot in range. And speaking of plants, I mentioned in my Canelo vs. Caleb Plant film study that Caleb Plant came in with the game plan of attacking Canelo mid-step. Plant's best moments in that fight came when he was successfully able to time Canelo's step forward, and I'll show you how he did that. So we see Canelo steps forward with his rear foot, then his lead foot, and then Plant probes to check the distance. And then Canelo takes another step forward with his rear foot. And we're about to see that one of the detriments to stepping with the rear foot first is that it momentarily leaves you in a narrow stance. You see from here, Canelo has to step again with either foot to be back in his normal stance, and Plant saw this step with his rear foot, so he's going to launch his attack as Canelo is about to step his lead foot forward to fix his stance. And as expected, the step forward with the lead foot comes and Plant launches his attack at the same time because he saw the initial step forward with the rear foot. Canelo cannot effectively counter here, as you see his foot is still mid-air. So then we see the left hook and the right hand, and Canelo's counter left hook comes too late because he had to get his foot down first. Here we see Canelo step with the rear foot again, and Plant sees the step forward with the rear foot and attacks while Canelo's stance is narrow. Plant has no fear of a counter coming his way with Canelo in this stance, and Canelo's unable to counter the attack. And this brings me back to the fight with Dmitry Bivol, who applied the same strategy and was able to time Canelo mid-step off of Canelo's rear foot. Now obviously it's unwise to stare at your opponent's feet during a fight, but there are still subtle tells you could pick up on to recognize the step, such as hip movement, rear shoulder movement, and especially with Canelo, a lean in on the lead foot. Especially at this long range you see them at now, Canelo needs to step forward to cut the distance, so Bivol is already anticipating the step forward. However, this lean in you see here from Canelo confirms the step because he's loading his weight onto his lead foot so he could step in with his rear foot. So there we see the step, and Bivol intercepts Canelo with his signature pendulum stepping jab. Canelo is unable to counter. So here we see Canelo step with the rear foot again, and now Bivol knows that Canelo is now in a narrow stance, and now has to step again to fix himself. Bivol could launch an attack now, and there will be a good chance Canelo will be mid-step with his lead foot, so he won't be able to counter back. And there's the attack that intercepts Canelo mid-step. And then again we're going to see Canelo step in with the rear foot, which prompts Dmitry Bivol to launch an attack, interrupting Canelo's lead foot step. And here once again the lean in from Canelo gives away the rear foot step, which indicates to Bivol to punch because the lead foot step is coming. Then once the lead foot step comes, Bivol's attack lands while Canelo's lead foot is still mid-air. And here you can't see the feet, but if you pay attention to the hips, you notice Canelo moves his rear foot, then his lead foot there, which prompts Bivol to intercept him with this jab. And even though you can't see the feet, you could tell that Canelo's lead foot must be mid-air here due to his inability to defend or counter this jab. And Bivol picked up on this too, as he shot this jab as he saw Canelo moving in with his rear foot. And also in this instance, Canelo attempted to try a distance deception trick, so let's see what he meant to do. So like before, he steps with his rear foot, then his lead foot, and then we see Canelo is going to lean over his lead foot, and this is going to mask the step he's about to take with his rear foot. He's still slightly out of punching range here. However, I want you to pay attention to the location of Canelo's head here as I've drawn a line. So we see another step with the rear foot and another step with the lead foot there. And then we see that I haven't even moved the line, but Canelo's head is still on the green line, making him look like he hasn't moved. However, he stepped into punching range. Canelo leaned back while stepping his lead foot into punching range, and this is the distance deception. They're able to land punches here. And as Jacobs attempts to check the distance again, Canelo pops him with the jab and surprises him. And back to Bivol, we see Canelo leans forward to mask his rear foot step, and then he leans back to mask his lead foot step, and Bivol intercepts him with a jab there. However, unlike Jacobs, Bivol didn't allow Canelo to plant his lead foot into punching range. It was as simple as seeing the rear foot move, then attacking, which would perfectly time Canelo in the middle of his next step. As always, special thanks to my GOAT tier patrons, Jason Maheenan, Grant Gabriel, Albert Chen, Jeff, Dmitry Drozdov, Andre, Gostala Geza, and Mark Price. I'll see you guys on the next one.